Welcome to Halacha in a Year, where we can get to learn all the most relevant halacha through the prism of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You are listening to Rabbi Ya'akov Trump. This year is kindly sponsored by the Moshe Group and CA in zechus of Rivka Biela, bas נחמה שיפרה, and in honor of Rabbi Trump.
Today we're going to be learning the second part of the laws of the Megilah. This is Siman Kuf Mem Aleph, 141 part 2 in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We're looking at the laws of Purim. Last time we looked at the laws of Tanis Esther, the laws of the Machzis HaShekel, davening in Shul on the night of Purim, and reading the Megilah. We're going to look at four other concepts today, and they are the Megilah reader, the Megilah parchment, morning davening on Purim, and then walled cities. Let's jump straight in. Our first concept is the Megilah reader. What intent does the reader of the Megilah for other people need to have? So he needs to have the intent to be moitzi, to allow the other people to fulfill their obligation when reading the Megilah. So he needs to not just be reading it nonchalantly for himself, he needs to be doing it with the intention of everybody else being the recipient of this obligation by him doing it. What intent does the listener need to have? So they too also need to listen to every word to be yotzei. Let's just clarify that a little bit more. How much can one miss and still be yotzei? How much can I hear and then I am still yotzei? What's the biggest amount that I can miss and still fulfill my obligation? So the truth is if one misses hearing even one word, one has not fulfilled the mitzvah of Megilah, this makes it tricky. So that means if one arrives even 10 seconds late, one cannot listen to that Megilah reading, it is not helping, and one has to be careful. Is that really possible? The answer is of course. One just needs to be careful of a few things. One is being very careful not to nod off. Let's say one is just fast to Tanis Esther. One hasn't had a coffee and one's feeling a little tired. One sits down and the temperature in the room is somewhat warm. It's easy to nod off. If you nod off for a sentence, you're done. You've lost your obligation of fulfilling the Megilah readings. One has to be careful. Similarly, one also has to be careful that when the noise that is made around Haman's name is made, that the reader waits until it's died down to continue so everybody can really hear every single word as well. Another possibility is for a person to have their own parchment, their own cloth of the Megilah, and to read silently at the same time. So in case they miss a word, they will have at least read it from the parchment itself as well. Now, what if I don't have a Megilah kasher? I do not have a kosher parchment. So if one has a chumash open and reads quietly for word, and one word is missed, one still b'di eved in a post-facto environment is yotzei, fulfills the obligation. How loud can I read with my chumash or my Megilah open in front of me? So it should not be audible at all. It should only be silently articulated, and the reason is because if it's even somewhat of a whisper, you're going to start hearing yourself instead of the reader, and people around you are certainly going to be able to only hear you, not the reader. It just happens to be that I've noticed that some people just don't know, they don't have the dial called whisper. It's either talk or not talk. And so that's also part of this as well, so it has to be completely inaudible as well. Are there any extras that the Baal Korah needs to do when he's reading the Megilah? The answer is yes. So first of all, when reading the Megilah at the beginning of the 6th parak, where it says, that night the king's sleep was interrupted, that needs to be done with a raised voice because that's when the major miracle begins. Also, when he reads Ha'igeres Hazois, this letter, he needs to lift or shake the Megilah that he's holding when he's reading it. There's also 4 psukim of Geula. There's 4 times where the Megilah identifies a moment of redemption, and they are read aloud by the people in the community. So the Baal Korah, the person reading it, needs to stop, allow her to say it out, and then says it after they finish so we can hear it directly from him as well. And finally, the 4th of the specific interruptions or unique readings is for the 10 sons of Haman. The person who's reading it should read them all in one breath because they were all killed at one time. What about the community? So some have the practice that the Baal Korah stops, everybody says it in one breath as well. The Kitzur says that he doesn't believe it's necessary to do this, but still that seems to be the general practice today as well. Now, if someone read Megilah for others and was yotzei, or read it for himself, can they read it for the people who've not yet heard it? The answer is yes, and in fact, learning how to read the Megilah is an incredible chesed, not just because it's a beautiful thing to know, but because you can read it multiple times for multiple people. Who says the bracha? So there's 3 brachas that are said before Megilah and 1 bracha which is said afterwards. The bracha afterwards is not said when there's no minyan, but in terms of the brachas beforehand, she'asa nisim and she'echianu can be said by the Baal Korah, no problem. If the one is already yotzei and one is laning to men and women, then the Baal Koreh says Al Mikra Megilah. If one is laning only to women, then one says Lishmoa Mikra Megilah instead, because the chiyuv is different for women, and therefore the nusach of that bracha will be slightly different as well. We move on to the next concept, which is the Megilah parchment itself. Is a Megilah muktzah on Shabbos? The answer is no. If Purim is on Sunday, one should just not bring it to shul on Shabbos, because there's a problem of Erev, of carrying hotzah on Shabbos, and also a problem of Achana, doing an action on Shabbos for post-Shabbos. What if there's no Baal Koreh who knows the trop, doesn't know the cancellation? So that a person in that kind of situation may read it from the klaf, from the parchment, without the cancellation, as long as the words are pronounced correctly. What happens if that's not possible, to get all the words right from a Megilah, because Megilah doesn't have vowels in it? So then it says that Kitzur, it would be better to write in the vowels into the parchment so a person could read it correctly than to read out of a chumash where one would not be yotze, would not fulfill the obligation. What if the community has a Megilah, but it's missing a few words in the middle? So b'diavad, in a post-facto situation, if this is the only option, one can be yotze with the Megilah that's missing a few words, as long as it's not missing the first or last section of the Megilah, first or last pasuk, to be more specific. What if no Megilah is available at all? Then if there's no Megilah available, and this is just the situation, everybody should individually read it from a chumash, and they should not say any brachas, because that's not fulfilling the obligation of Mikra Megilah. The seventh, we're going to move into our next concept, which is the morning davening on Purim. When is Megilah read during the day? So here's how it goes. It goes after the repetition of the Shemona Esrei in the morning. One does Chatzi Kaddish, then Kriyas Torah with 3 aliyahs from the end of Parshas B'Shalach, where Amalek attacks the nation of Israel. Then another Chatzi Kaddish, Megilah reading with its brachas before and afterwards. There's no piyut of Asher Heini like we do at night. After Shoshanas Yaakov, we say Asher Volet Zion, and then a Kaddish Shalem, and continue with davening as well. May I remove my tefillin before the Megilah? So in general, one needs to keep their tefillin on until the end of the davening. That's basic respect. But on Purim, it's especially important because in the Megilah, we recognize a number of things that the nation of Israel had. One of them was Yikar. Yikar refers to tefillin, so one should be saying that when wearing one's tefillin. If there is a bris on Purim, when does it go? So it goes before the Megilah for the similar reason, because Yikar refers to tefillin, but Sason refers to the bris milah. So one should have the bris milah done before the Megilah, and therefore as evidence that we just performed this mitzvah by the time you're reading it. What should a person do during the Shiva, God forbid, on Purim? So it's best to have a minyan in the house and hear Megilah at home. If that's not possible, they should daven at home and come to shul for the Mikra Megilah. What should an oinain do? Let's say, God forbid, there was a patira on Erev Purim, on Tanis Esther, and there's going to be a burial on Purim itself. So there's no meat and wine on the night of Purim. That's the general practices of an oinain. And there's no obligation to have Su'udah at night. But they should hear Megilah from somebody else. And the next day after the burial, they should daven and then hear the Megilah read to them. What does an oinain on Purim do? That's the patira is on Purim, the burial's the next day. They may eat meat and drink wine because that is the chiyuv, the obligation of the day. We move to the last concept, and that is walled cities. When do walled cities celebrate Purim? They celebrate on the 15th of Adar, not the 14th. What types of walls? So it needs to be walls from the times of Yoshua ben Nun. The one city we know today, Susa is not doing so well. Shushan is not doing so well today in general under its current governance, but Yerushalayim, Baruch Hashem, is a walled city from the times of Yoshua ben Nun. What about proximate cities? So anything which is within sight is lands on the 15th. So many of the neighboring the hilltop communities around Yerushalayim follow Yerushalayim's minhag as well. What if the 15th falls on Shabbos? So then we call that Purim Mishulash, a 3-day Purim, and that works as follows. On Friday of that constellation, there's Megilah and Matanos Evyonim. On Shabbos, there's Al Nisim said in the davening, there's learning about Purim and a special Maftir and Haftarah. And on Sunday is the Su'udah and Mishlach Mana. So it's sort of divided, this extended experience of Purim. And finally, what about places which are doubtfully walled from the times of Yoshua ben Nun? Then they would do both the 14th and the 15th as well, which is less of a concern, generally speaking, today. With this, we end and conclude the very fascinating halachas of the Mikra Megilah. We'll finish up with Matanos Evyonim, Mishlach Manos, and Su'udah in the next episode.